Hi there. Welcome back to This Nosy Human. My name is Stephanie. I am This Nosy Human. Now, it's no surprise what we're talking about because you see the title of the video. But before we talk about my 5 tips to navigating the digital landscape, I do want to touch on why it's important. So, in my book review of Nobody Knows What They're Doing a couple of weeks ago on my channel, I had read about the attention economy, and I wanted to delve a little further into that. I found a report that was put together by the UN in March of this year, 2023, so just a few months ago, that was talking about this. So what the attention economy is it's all about capturing consumers' attention. Consumer attention is the most important commodity of our day and age. It goes above and beyond just plain marketing because we have these large social media companies that change the game. So it's not just how Pepsi is going to get more of your attention than Coca-Cola or how commercials are always louder than the show you're watching. It's the aggregation of everyone's attention, everyone's data, and how private companies profit off of users' attention. One example I can think of is Google. So Google tracks every site you go to, every search you do, everything that it can get its hands on, and uses that to guide your search results, give you personalized ads, and potentially sell that data and can use your data for its own ends because now Google owns your data. From a social media perspective, if we are an output of all of our inputs, social media companies control what we consume within the apps that can change how we view the world. It's one of the largest impacts of the attention economy. Now, there's no denying the benefits of social media in breaking people out of their personal regional bubble. Black Lives Matter went as large as it went because of social media. But it's a double-edged sword. To keep your attention in the app, algorithms are designed to show you content that you may find disturbing or triggering, or it grabs your emotion. Coming to light in the last several years is the flat-out wrong or incorrect information that can go viral on these apps. Most often because it's triggering to people. We saw that with claims of election interference in the US in 2020 and the COVID vaccine misinformation. Regardless of where you fall on the political or social spectrum, it falls to us as individuals to figure out if the media that we are consuming is based in truth. I wish we lived in a world where we can just trust what people tell us, what large news organizations tell us, but unfortunately we cannot. So when we're consuming media of any kind, and we all do this a lot, we need to make a conscious effort to make sure we know what is truth and what may be less true. So I have these tips for you. These tips are ones I try to do, and hopefully you find yourself incorporating some of these tips. Tip number 1, evaluate your source. And I don't mean just know what the source is, but look at it critically. Does the organization lean one way or another? Does the author have biases? So an easy example here is Fox News versus MSNBC. Obviously, 2 sides of a very large spectrum. Both are biased, but in different ways. So MSNBC, for example, kept calling claims of election interference, quote, the big lie. Now, the big lie, based in truth, but the word and the verbiage became this tagline, and the tagline is intended to get you mad. It's designed for you to have an emotional response to it. So it's playing on your emotions, and understanding that when it comes to the phraseology used, and they use it a lot, is important to be aware of. Now, on the opposite side of the spectrum, Fox News. When I looked on Fox News after a school mass shooting, I saw an article that was basically outlining the left's war on religion when political leaders were saying thoughts and prayers aren't enough. And they spun that in this article to the left doesn't like God. So 2 vastly different sides of the coin, 2 different sides of the political spectrum, both have their biases. Being aware of the biases can help you be critical of what you are consuming and help you figure out the nuggets of truth in a biased representation. Very little news media that we consume is unbiased. So moving on from this slippery slope of the news media, tip number 2 is to cross-check what you're reading or watching. So take nothing at face value. So if you trust anything someone says, you'll probably have some things wrong. So I learned this from John Green in Crash Course, Navigating Digital Literacy, Digital Media. I'll link it down below. To read laterally is the point. So when you read something on the internet, open up a new tab and see what a search result comes back with. Sometimes the facts will be right and you'll just get a new or different context surrounding it. And sometimes you'll find out something is wrong or misrepresented, and you'll better be able to filter out the noise. Over time, you may discover that there is a source that you tend to trust, but doing your due diligence will help you get the right story. Now, I will also say, be aware of my biases. Be aware of the biases on this channel. Be critical of the information I produce for you to consume. Often, my videos are, 10, 12, 13 minutes maybe, if that. So a lot of the times, I'm just reporting out the things that I've learned, the things that I believe to be true. Be critical of what I produce. And always, 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 respectfully, please, don't call me an idiot in the comments, but I'm always welcoming other perspectives in the comment section. So if you have anything to add, anything that I might have missed, absolutely please meet me down in that comment section. Tip number 3 is to check the date. So this might seem simple, but information does get stale over time, and there might be something newer out there. So we used to think smoking was okay, but now we know that smoking is not great for your health, more likely for many diseases, cancer, COPD, or more recently, think of COVID. So everything happened so fast, especially towards the beginning. The science community learned things so quickly that it felt like things changed on a dime, snap of the fingers, change. Like masks, right? First, at least my experience in the US, first we were told that masks weren't necessary. Then we were told, yes, they help, but we don't have enough, so don't try to get any because our nurses need them. Then it became yes, buy them. Then it became double mask. Then it became surgical masks aren't enough, you need N95s. Everything changed so quickly that being aware that if the article that you're looking at is 2 weeks old, it might be out of date at this point. Other things might not be out of date within 2 weeks, but that is a very extreme example of what things could go out of date. Fourth tip is to check your citations. So where are people getting this information? Any scientific or scholarly article will have citations, and you can go to source after source. Even Wikipedia has sources. Don't use Wikipedia, use the sources. I think it's kind of fun to check out what sources people use, because while the author may have put together information in a specific way to make it understandable or to make their point, there is usually context in the sources that may add to your understanding. Don't be afraid of checking out those sources. It's a little extra legwork, but the extra context is always helpful. And finally, the fifth tip is arguably the most important. And it's this: user-generated information, including mine, should never be your end point. It should always be your starting point. Anyone can get on an app and start spewing information. How do you know that they're sharing things that are even true? Always do the other tips, especially if you're evaluating something another user has come up with. Gen Z is more likely to find out information through TikTok than Google. Wild when I found that one out. So it's really important, if you're using user-generated data to get information, that you're doing these other tips. That should be the first clue that it's super important. Much more so, news organizations, you can have that baseline understanding, in theory, that the information that you're getting is true, even if it's presented in a biased way. You can't have that with user-generated data. So I'll give you a real-world example really recently. Someone on my Instagram feed recently shared a video that showed several politicians and their net worth. And she specifically added that you don't get that rich as a politician unless you're corrupt. I don't know if I agree or disagree with that statement, but the politicians in question were Obama, McConnell, and a few others. So it leaned mostly Democrat, but I appreciated that Mitch McConnell was there as well. Because they listed out, let's say, 4 or 5 Democrats and 1 Republican, my first bias check was maybe they lean conservative, but we're at least trying to be fair. That's great. The next thing I did was take a look at Obama's net worth. So it was half of what this video was stating, still in the millions, but not over 100 million. So then I asked, well, how did he get his net worth? Turns out, between a $400K annual salary that you don't spend for 8 years and a bunch of book deals, you can earn quite a lot. Then I looked at McConnell's net worth, and he has various businesses along with a $30 million inheritance. But this video was user-generated content, so I didn't want to take it at face value like the person who shared it did. The net worths were wrong, and the conclusion that this user came up with was based on something more specific than just net worth that I didn't want to speculate on. Now, could this conclusion still be correct? Absolutely. But the inputs from the video that they attached were not pointing me in that direction as much as I think she might have wanted. So that's just an example of user-generated data not being accurate. Being a well-informed person means that you need to be cautious of what you're consuming on the internet. Being aware of the attention economy and making sure that what you're consuming is accurate are both important steps in you getting the best information possible. The internet is great because you can get so many different perspectives, but you always have to be careful and make sure that what you are consuming is correct. So hopefully these tips help you. It is not an exhaustive list. There are many more things you can do to make sure that you are navigating digital information well. But it's the steps that I make sure I do, and hopefully you can incorporate some of that in your own Googling. As always, I know I've already mentioned this before. This is a short video for some pretty in-depth topics. So if you have anything to add to the conversation, a different perspective, meet me in the comments. I value the conversation. Until next time, stay curious.